There are mornings when standing up from a chair feels different from how it once did. Not painful, not dramatic, just different. A slight hesitation in the legs, a quiet wobble, a reminder that the body no longer responds with the same immediacy. And for many people after 60, that moment isn't just physical. It carries a whisper of fear. Will this get worse? Will I still be able to walk to the garden? Will I keep my independence? These thoughts visit in silence, often unspoken, yet deeply felt. They are part of the slow and intimate conversation we have with our aging bodies. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who cared for patients well into his own 100 years of life, used to compare the aging body to a traditional Japanese lantern. On the outside, the lantern glows with a soft, familiar beauty, but its strength depends entirely on the thin wooden frame hidden inside. Over time, that frame becomes more delicate, and in the same way, our muscles, bones, and inner systems depend on silent supports that we rarely think about. Vitamins may seem small and unimportant, but after 60, they act like the beams that hold the lantern steady in the wind. Without them, the structure we rely on each day slowly weakens, not with noise or warning, but with a quiet fading of strength. What many people do not realize is that muscle loss after 60 isn't only caused by sitting too long or skipping exercise. It often begins within the body itself. Digestion slows down, appetite changes, medications interfere with absorption. Foods that once nourished us stop delivering the same benefits, and while this happens, the body starts missing specific vitamins that once came easily. The result is subtle. Recovery becomes slower, balance less certain, movements feel heavier. These changes don't announce themselves. They simply accumulate day after day, until one morning the body feels unfamiliar. Dr. Mark Hyman often explains that micronutrient deficiencies disrupt the body quietly, long before symptoms become obvious. It isn't dramatic. It's a dimming of the internal energy pathways that keep muscles responsive. A little more effort needed to rise from bed, a longer pause before climbing a step, a sensation that the body no longer recovers the way it used to. These are not failures. They are signals. Gentle, persistent signals that the body is asking for nourishment it no longer receives in the same way. And that is why this video does not bring you a list of 20 supplements or complicated routines. Instead, we will focus on only 4 vitamins, 4 nutrients with some of the strongest evidence in supporting muscle strength, balance, and mobility in older adults. 4 forms of nourishment that can protect your frame, the lantern inside, from bending under time. These vitamins are simple, accessible, and grounded in real science and real experience. No miracles, no shortcuts, just steady support for a body that still wants to move. Because maintaining muscle after 60 is not about appearance. It is not about lifting heavy weights or transforming the body. It is about autonomy. It is about bending down to tie a shoe without fear. It is about standing from a chair without calling for help. It is about walking to the mailbox, opening jars, carrying groceries, or feeling steady on uneven ground. It is about living with confidence, not caution. So as we move into the 4 main chapters of this video, think of your body the way Hinohara described that lantern. Think of the beams that need reinforcing. Think of the strength that is still there, waiting, capable, ready to respond when given the right support. And remember this simple truth. It's possible, it's still possible. Strength can return slowly and quietly, one nourished cell at a time. For decades, people trusted sunlight as their main source. A walk outside, a few minutes in the garden, an afternoon on the porch, that used to be enough. But after 60, the skin simply doesn't produce vitamin D the way it once did. The same sunlight that once nourished the body no longer creates the same internal reaction. This shift is gentle, but it carries weight, because vitamin D is deeply intertwined with how muscles receive and respond to signals. Without it, movements that were once instinctive begin to feel slower, and coordination loses part of its grace. When scientists describe vitamin D's role in muscle activation, they talk about communication, the constant exchange between nerves and muscle fibers. But instead of using medical language, imagine something simpler, a conversation between 2 old friends. When vitamin D is plentiful, the words flow naturally. When it is low, the messages become unclear and the muscles respond with hesitation. This is why some older adults feel that their legs don't listen the way they used to, or that their body reacts a little too late when stepping off a curb or rising from a seat. Some people are surprised to learn that vitamin D deficiency is common even in places filled with sunshine. Elders avoid strong heat, stay indoors during the brightest hours, or simply no longer spend the time outside that they once did. The light is there, but the opportunity to absorb it is not, and without realizing it, the body slowly drifts into a state where this essential nutrient becomes scarce. Nourishing the body with vitamin D does not require dramatic change. It can begin quietly, through familiar foods that fit naturally into daily life. A simple serving of eggs, some sardines on a piece of toast, or a glass of fortified milk or its alternatives. Some people choose to check their levels with a routine blood test, especially when fatigue or balance issues become more noticeable. Others find benefit in small portions of magnesium-rich foods, which help the body make better use of whatever vitamin D is available. These are ordinary gestures, accessible even to someone living alone, adjusting to loss or carrying the weight of aches that make cooking more difficult. Stay with me for more gentle, practical ways to keep your body steady and strong after 60. If this resonates, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next step toward lasting vitality. For much of life, extracting B12 from food happens without thought. The stomach produces the acids and enzymes needed to pull it from meat, dairy, and other foods. But after 60, those digestive processes naturally slow down. Even when the diet seems rich enough, the body might not absorb what it receives. It is a quiet shift, one that leaves many believing they are nourished when in truth their cells have begun to run low on this essential vitamin. And because B12 is closely tied to nerve health, this shortage affects not only energy, but the delicate pathways that help the muscles respond promptly and precisely. Scientists describe B12 as a guardian of the nerves, protecting the thin insulation that surrounds them. Without adequate B12, this protective layer begins to weaken, and the electrical signals traveling from the brain to the muscles lose part of their strength. The body then responds with small signs, steps that feel a bit slower, hands that tremble while holding a cup, or legs that do not fully support the weight when rising from the bed. These sensations can be unsettling, especially for someone who lives alone or worries about falling. But understanding the source brings relief, because this is not a failure of the body. It is a loss of nourishment that can be tended to with care. In many traditional cultures, elders nourished themselves with small nutrient-dense foods, a spoonful of liver, a bit of shellfish, or fermented dishes that naturally replenished B12. These habits were woven into daily life, passed from one generation to another. In many Western households, however, these foods gradually disappeared from the table, leaving a gap that often goes unnoticed until weakness or shakiness appears. Supporting B12 levels can happen in simple and comfortable ways. Some older adults gently reintroduce ingredients like fortified cereals or nutritional yeast, easy additions that require little effort or preparation. Others find that B12 sprays or drops, which bypass digestion, offer a practical alternative for a stomach that no longer absorbs as it once did. These are not dramatic solutions. They are quiet adjustments, accessible and adaptable for someone who may be grieving, coping with physical limitations, or preparing meals with less enthusiasm than before. Think of B12 as the insulation around an old electrical wire in a cherished home. When the insulation is strong, the lights turn on instantly and the house feels alive. When it thins, the signals flicker, the bulb glows, but not with the brightness it once had. Restoring B12 does not rebuild the entire system, but it strengthens those delicate pathways so the body can respond with clarity again. Movements become steadier, steps regain rhythm, the hands tremble less, and the world feels more secure beneath the feet. Over the years, many people gradually shift their eating habits toward foods that feel lighter or quicker to prepare. Convenience becomes necessary, especially for those living alone or managing limited energy. Low-fat options tend to dominate the refrigerator, partly out of habit and partly out of the belief that they are healthier. But these choices often come with an unintended cost, a steady reduction in the amount of vitamin E that reaches the muscles. Because vitamin E hides in natural fats, in seeds, nuts, oils, eating less of these foods means the body receives less protection at a time when it needs it the most. Scientists often describe oxidative stress as a form of internal weathering, a natural process that simply happens with age. Without enough vitamin E, the muscle cells are left exposed to this wear, and repair becomes slower. But instead of imagining complex biochemical reactions, picture a simple scene: a gentle rain falling on an old wooden porch. With proper care, the wood stays strong. Without that care, the rain slowly seeps in, softening the surface. The porch is still there, still sturdy, but it becomes more vulnerable. Vitamin E is that quiet care, the protective shield that keeps the structure resilient even as the years pass. In the Mediterranean regions, older adults often maintain muscle strength without formal exercise routines. Their secret is woven into their meals: olive oil drizzled over vegetables, a small handful of nuts shared in the afternoon, seeds sprinkled on bread or salads. These foods carry vitamin E naturally, in amounts that gently nourish the body day after day. It is a tradition born not of science, but of culture. Yet modern research now echoes what these communities have practiced for generations. Supporting vitamin E intake can happen through simple gestures: a spoonful of olive oil added to warm vegetables, a few almonds or sunflower seeds kept in a small jar on the kitchen counter, a bit of oil stirred into a bowl of soup to give it depth. These moments of nourishment do not require large changes or complex planning. They fit easily into the routines of someone who may be aging in silence, managing grief, or rebuilding their sense of strength one day at a time. When thinking about vitamin E, imagine each muscle cell holding a small umbrella during a storm. The umbrella does not stop the rain, but it shields what matters. It prevents damage, slows the wear, and gives the fibers the protection they need to stay resilient. Over time, this protection shows itself in subtle but meaningful ways: soreness that fades more quickly, strength that feels less fragile, movements that carry a bit more confidence. For years, people were taught that calcium was the key to strong bones. Glasses of milk, calcium tablets, fortified drinks, all offered as protection against the weakening of age. But calcium does not act on its own. Without the guidance of vitamin K2, it can wander through the body, settling where it does not belong and leaving the bones less supported than expected. This quiet misplacement weakens the skeletal frame in ways that affect far more than posture. When the bones feel unstable, the muscles instinctively withdraw. They hesitate, holding back their full strength as if unsure of the foundation below. Scientists describe this relationship as a coordinated dance between muscle and bone, one that depends on both stability and communication. But instead of imagining complicated biology, picture a wooden bridge stretching across a stream. The planks represent the muscles, flexible and capable. The beams beneath represent the bones, firm and supportive. If the beams weaken or shift, the planks cannot carry weight the way they once did. Even the slightest instability makes the whole structure cautious. Vitamin K2 strengthens those hidden beams, guiding calcium to reinforce the bones so the muscles feel confident enough to engage fully again. This is not merely theoretical. In Japan, elders traditionally include natto in their diets, a fermented soybean dish with a strong aroma and a rich supply of vitamin K2. Many do not choose it for health. They eat it because it is part of their heritage. Yet this quiet cultural habit has been linked to lower fracture rates and greater stability in later years. It is a reminder that nourishment often lives in the simplest practices, carried forward by generations who understood balance long before science gave it a name. For those who may not enjoy fermented foods, or who prepare meals with limited time or energy, the presence of K2 can still be supported through accessible options. Some find it through modest servings of sauerkraut or aged cheeses, which fit naturally into daily meals. Others discuss low-dose supplements with their clinicians, especially when concerns about bone density arise. Nothing dramatic, nothing burdensome, just small, gentle choices that honor the body's need for structure and support. To understand K2's role, imagine a skilled guide standing at a busy crossroads, directing calcium precisely where it is needed. Without that guidance, traffic becomes chaotic and the city loses its rhythm. With it, everything flows. Bones receive the reinforcement they rely on. Muscles sense that stability and respond with greater ease and confidence. Movements become smoother, posture steadier, and the body feels more aligned with itself. Vitamin D brings the first spark that allows muscles to activate with purpose. When it begins to fade, the legs feel heavier, the balance becomes tentative, and the world feels slightly less secure underfoot. Vitamin B12 keeps the nervous system communicating clearly, ensuring that each step begins with intention rather than hesitation. When it becomes scarce, shakiness and slow reactions appear, often mistaken for inevitable signs of aging. Vitamin E protects muscle fibers from the wear that accumulates silently over the years, the kind of wear that leaves a person sore for longer after the simplest tasks. And vitamin K2 ensures that bones remain strong and aligned, giving muscles the stable foundation they need to work with confidence. Without this balance, posture changes, movements become cautious, and the body begins to guard itself, withdrawing its former ease. These supports come from the silent work of nutrients that no longer arrive as easily as they once did. Vitamin D awakening the muscles, vitamin B12 strengthening the nerve pathways that guide movement, vitamin E guarding the muscle fibers through countless small stresses, vitamin K2 keeping the bones aligned so the body can trust its own foundation. They do not promise impossible things. They simply offer steadiness where the body needs it most. They help movements feel more secure, help posture settle into its natural shape, help the muscles remember the strength they still hold. Dan Bietner observed this in long-lived communities where age does not bring fear but acceptance. Their elders rely on modest, nourishing habits, fermented foods, sunlight in the morning, simple meals cooked slowly, small moments of movement woven into daily life. Nothing extreme, nothing demanding. Their strength grows from consistency, from the kind of care that is gentle enough to repeat day after day. And in this quiet rhythm, their bodies remain capable long after the world assumes they should not be. As the body ages, nourishment becomes an act of respect. It is a way of saying, I still need you, I still trust you. And the body, even after many seasons, responds, perhaps not with the energy of youth, but with steadiness, with clarity, with the ability to stand a little taller, walk a little more securely, and greet the day without hesitation. Right here, allow me a small invitation that stays within this same spirit. If these reflections help you feel supported, consider joining this channel so you can receive more gentle, nourishing guidance each week, just as the body receives the nutrients that keep it steady. The goal is simple: to offer a place where aging is honored, strength is protected, and no one feels alone in their search for vitality.